A very good afternoon to you from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is ATN International News for today. To begin, let's take a look at the biggest stories making the headlines. Tanzania senior opposition party official abducted. Egypt certified as malaria-free, according to World Health Organization. Elon Musk's election promise sparks probe. Mexican indigenous priests killed leaving Sunday Mass. China condemns attack on Myanmar consulate. Gunmen kill 7 people in Kashmir. Israel apologized for strikes that killed Lebanese soldiers. These and more stories to come your way in a moment. Do stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A
And now on the news in detail, let's delve into Africa. We begin with Kenya. Kenya's impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said on Sunday that his security protection team had been withdrawn and that President William Ruto would be responsible if anything happened to him. Gachagua, who has dismissed the charges against him as politically motivated, told journalists his safety was at risk. It is the most unfortunate thing that has ever happened in this country that you can be so vicious to a man who helped you to be president, he told journalists, referring to Ruto, whose candidacy he supported in the 2022 elections. Police spokeswoman Resila Onyango declined to make an immediate comment and said she would make inquiries about Gachagua's statement on the security protection. Ruto's spokesperson said they would comment later. Senior protection is regularly scaled down for senior politicians after they leave office in Kenya. Gachagua told journalists that his case was different as he had launched a legal challenge to his impeachment, so did not see his dismissal as final. Gachagua was impeached on Thursday on 5 out of 11 charges, including gross violation of the Constitution and stirring ethnic hatred, in a motion that was backed by opposition lawmakers and Ruto allies. He denied all the accusations. On Friday, Parliament approved the appointment of Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki to replace Gachagua, but a court put Kindiki's swearing in on hold pending the legal challenges from Gachagua and others. Ruto, who has fallen out with Gachagua in recent months, has not commented on the impeachment proceedings. On Sunday, while addressing a national holiday celebration, Ruto called for national cohesion and an end to tribalism and exclusion. Unidentified people abducted, beat and seriously injured a senior Tanzanian opposition party official before dumping her in a forest, her party said on Sunday, a month after a similar abduction and murder of another of its party leaders. The reported cases maintains the reformist image of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who has been praised for easing repression since succeeding John Magufuli, who died in office 3 years ago. Rights campaigners say Hassan's government is targeting opponents ahead of local elections in December and a national vote in 2025. The government denies their accusations. Chadema, the leading opposition party, said its women's wing publicity secretary Aisha Machano was abducted in Kibiti town in the eastern part of the country while she was on official duties. Chadema said Machano's abductors wanted details on who instructed them to burn clothes provided by President Samia Suluhu Hassan during 2023 commemorations of World Women Day in Kilimanjaro region. Police spokesperson David Misime said that after receiving information that Machado was the second senior opposition official to be abducted and tortured within 2 months, Ali Kibao, a member of Chadema's secretariat, was abducted from a bus by armed men early last month while traveling from Dar es Salaam to the coastal city of Tanga. Kibao's body was later found on the outskirts of Dar es Salaam with signs he had been bitten and acid had been poured on his face, his party said then. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi warned on Sunday that Egypt may be forced to re-evaluate its $8 billion program with the IMF if international institutions do not take into account the extraordinary regional challenges the country is facing. Egypt signed an $8 billion financial support package with the International Monetary Fund in March that requires it to reduce subsidies on fuel, electricity, and other commodities and to allow its currency to float freely, measures that have triggered public fury. The IMF package unlocked billions of dollars of additional funds from the World Bank and the European Union. On Friday, Egypt raised prices on a wide range of fuel products for the third time this year, with diesel and gasoline prices increasing by between 11% to 17%. In June, it raised the price of subsidized bread by 300%. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly said in July that fuel prices would continue to rise gradually through to the end of 2025. Attacks on Red Sea shipping by Yemen's Houthis, who say they are acting in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, has diverted traffic from the Suez Canal, causing revenue to fall to $870 million in the second quarter from $2.54 billion a year earlier. Egyptian officials are attending the IMF and the World Bank annual meetings in Washington this week, when they are expected to hold talks with officials from the two institutions. Sudan's army said on Sunday that a commander from its the Rapid Support Forces, had defected with some of its troops in what would be the first such move by a senior figure since the side started fighting more than 18 months ago. There was no immediate comment from the RSF, which has seized control of large parts of the country in the conflict with a military that the UN says has caused one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Supporters of the army posted photos online purporting to show Abu Kikal, a former army officer who became the RSF's top commander in the southeastern state of Al Ghazira after he had defected. The army, which has recently reported gains the RSF in parts of the capital, said Kikal had decided to make the move because of his former force's destructive agenda. It did not go into further detail, and there was no statement in print or in video from Kikal. The conflict has displaced more than 10 million people, driven parts of the country to extreme hunger or famine, and joining foreign powers that have supplied both sides with material support. It began in April 2023 when tensions between the RSF and the army, who had been jostling for a position ahead of an internationally backed transition to civilian rule, erupted into open conflict. The army and the RSF had previously shared power after staging a coup in 2021, 2 years after veteran autocrat Omar al-Bashir was toppled in a popular uprising. Egypt has been certified malaria-free by the World Health Organization (WHO), an achievement hailed by the UN Public Health Agency as truly historic. Malaria is as old as Egyptian civilization itself, but a disease that plagued pharaohs now belongs to its history, said World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. Egyptian authorities launched their first efforts to stamp out the deadly mosquito-borne infectious diseases nearly 100 years. Certification is granted when a country proves that the transmission chain is interrupted for at least the previous 3 consecutive years. Malaria kills at least 600,000 people every year, nearly all of them in Africa. In a statement on Sunday, the WHO praised the Egyptian government and people for their efforts to end a disease that has been present in the country since ancient times. It said Egypt was the 3rd country to be certified in the World Health Organization's Eastern Mediterranean region, following the United Arab Emirates and Morocco. Globally, 44 countries and 1 territory have reached this milestone. The UN Public Health Agency said first efforts to limit human mosquito contact in Egypt began in the 1920s when it banned rice cultivation and agricultural crops near homes. Malaria is caused by a complex parasite which is spread by mosquito bites. Vaccines are now being used in some places, but monitoring the diseases and avoiding mosquito bites are the most effective ways to prevent malaria. With the U.S. presidential election just over 2 weeks away, Democrat Kamala Harris visited 2 churches on Sunday, while her Republican rival Donald Trump visited another kind of American temple, a McDonald's, where he again accused Harris of lying about her previously worked at the fast food chain. Both candidates were scrambling for votes in the most competitive states, with Harris, the U.S. Vice President, appealing to early voters in Georgia, and Trump, the former president, campaigning in Pennsylvania ahead of the November 5th election. Harris highlighted the heroism of those who responded to Hurricane Helene, which caused deaths and destruction in Florida earlier this month. She drew a contrast between her vision for America and the harsh rhetoric of the current political climate, although she did not mention Trump by name. At this point across the nation, what we do see is some trying to deepen division among us, spread hate, sow fear, and cause chaos. Harris told thousands of congregants at the New Beth Missionary Baptist Church in Stonecrest, Georgia, while Trump criticized Harris for her comments at a rally in Pennsylvania, calling her names. Trump also visited a McDonald's in suburban Philadelphia, cooking French fries and dipping wire baskets of potatoes in sizzling oil. Trump has claimed the visit was a jab at Harris, who claims she worked at the fast food chain during her college years in California. Harris spokesperson Lance Sams said the stunt was a sign of Trump's desperation and his lack of understanding of the reality of having a summer job. Harris, who was raised in the teachings of the Black Church, celebrated her 60th birthday while campaigning outside of Atlanta. She said that she's working to end the votes of black men as they expected that they earn their vote. Harris needs strong results in the majority non-white cities of Detroit and Atlanta to repeat President Joe Biden's 2020 wins in Michigan and Georgia. Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro on Sunday called on law enforcement to investigate billionaire Elon Musk for his promise at a weekend pro-Trump rally to give away $1 million each day until Election Day. Musk on Saturday gave a $1 million check to an attendee at a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which was hosted by American PAC, a political action group the Tesla CEO set up to back Republican Donald Trump in the November 5th presidential election. Shapiro said on NBC's Meet the Press that Musk's plan to give money to registered voters in Pennsylvania is deeply concerning, and it's something that law enforcement could take a look at. The money is the latest example of Musk using his extraordinary wealth to influence the tightly contested presidential race between Trump and his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris. Pennsylvania is a must-win state for both Trump and Harris. Musk's America PAC is a significant tool in mobilizing and registering voters in battleground states that could decide the election. However, there are signs that the group is having trouble meeting its goal. Musk has given $1 million each day to someone who signs his online petition, which reads, "The First and Second Amendments guarantee freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. By signing below, I am pledging my support for the First and Second Amendments. To be eligible for the $1 million, petition signers must be a registered voter and live in one of the 7 swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin." The legality of the giveaways is expected to come under scrutiny in the coming days, as it is a federal crime to pay people with the intention of inducing or rewarding them to cast a vote or get registered. Musk has supplied at least $75 million to American PAC, making the group a crucial part of Trump's bid to regain the White House. Cuba's electrical grid collapsed again on Sunday, the 4th such failure in 48 hours, raising fresh doubts about a quick fix on an island already suffering from severe shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. The blackout, after weeks of rolling outages, sparked some small protests around the Caribbean island, where a tropical storm threatened to hamper efforts to restore power. Cuba's national electrical grid force crashed around midday on Friday after the island's largest power plants shut down, sowing chaos and leaving around 10 million people in the dark. The grid has collapsed 3 times since, underscoring the precarious state of the country's infrastructure. Cuba's government has faced a major setback in its efforts to restore power to exhausted residents who have already suffered from months of blackouts due to the Caribbean's sultry summer. President Miguel Diaz-Canel appeared on national television, encouraging Cubans to air their grievances with discipline and civility. Havana was completely blacked out on Sunday evening, with scattered businesses, bars, and homes running on small fuel-fired generators. Most of the city of 2 million was quiet, with residents playing dominoes on the sidewalk, listening to music on battery-powered radios, and sitting on doorsteps. Energy and Mines Minister Vincent de la O Levy acknowledged the blackouts were bothersome to residents, but said most Cubans understood and supported government efforts to restore power. The government initially said power would be restored by Monday or Tuesday, but it was not immediately clear how much the latest setback would delay the government's efforts. Tropical storm Oscar made landfall on the Caribbean island on Sunday, bringing strong winds, a powerful storm surge, and rain to parts of eastern Cuba. Housewife Annabel Gonzalez of Old Havana said she was growing desperate after 3 days without power. Internet traffic dropped off sharply in Cuba over the weekend as vast power outages made it all but impossible for most islands residents to charge phones and get online. The government has blamed weeks of worsening blackouts on deteriorating infrastructure, fuel shortages, and rising demand. The U.S. has denied any role in the grid failures. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on Sunday cancelled his trip to Russia for the BRICS summit after a fall at home caused a minor brain hemorrhage. In a statement, the presidential office said Lula, 78 years old, would participate via video conference after receiving medical advice to temporarily avoid long-haul flights. He was initially scheduled to depart at 5 p.m. on Sunday. Lula, Brazil's president, suffered a head injury following a fall, causing significant trauma to his head and resulting in a small brain hemorrhage in the temporal frontal region, according to reports. The condition requires repeated tests and observation, but Lula is doing well and can resume normal activities, according to Lula's doctor, Roberto Khalil. A medical report from the Syrio-Lebanese hospital in Brasilia stated that Lula suffered a laceration to the occipital region of his head and was advised to avoid long-distance air travel. The Brazilian government has designated Mauro Vieira as the foreign minister to lead the Brazilian delegation to the BRICS summit. Congresswoman Gleice Hoffmann confirmed that Lula is doing well, but advised against a long trip. Late into the night, mothers chanted for justice outside the children's school in Lima after a teacher was gunned down in front of his students in the latest and most shocking example of a surge in gang violence in Peru. CCTV footage of the incident on Monday showed panicked children running inside the school as the body of Julio Cesar Pacheco lay slumped inside the blue metal gates of Julio C. Tello in the working-class Ativitate neighborhood in the capital's east. He had been shot dead by an assassin pretending to deliver a legal notice. ATN gathered that recent crime wave in Peru has seen a surge of racketeering and murder, with workers protesting against dismissal law enforcement, poor leadership by an unpopular government, and a deliberate weakening of anti-crime legislation by the lower third Congress. Bus operators, motorized rickshaw, taxi drivers, shopkeepers, street vendors, artists, hairdressers, and soup kitchen workers have been targets for protection racket gangs who have forced them to make daily or weekly payments or face grenade attacks or even death. Less than 12 hours on the 8th of October, 7 murders occurred in Lima despite a 2-month state of emergency in 14 districts. Extortion victims are mostly informal workers getting by day to day with what they earn to support themselves and their families. Peru loses more than $1.6 billion annually to extortion, 0.7% of its national GDP, while insecurity costs the country 3.5%, equivalent to $9.28 billion. The number of violent deaths recorded until mid-October this year, 1,493, has already surpassed the total number of homicides in 2023. Peru's unpopular Congress is under pressure to annul a controversial law dubbed the Pro-Organized Crime Law, which experts argue weakens the fight against extortion and assassination by no longer classifying them as organized crime, which carries stiffer penalties. Tropical storm Oscar advanced across eastern Cuba earlier Monday after making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane on the island already beleaguered by a massive power outage. Its maximum sustained winds were blowing at 95 km per hour early on Monday as Oscar moved west-southwest at 8 km per hour, the U.S. National Hurricane Center in Miami said. Rain and flooding in low-lying areas were reported in eastern provinces. Cuba media said 2-meter swells were hitting the coast, and roofs and walls in Baracoa had been damaged. ATN learned that the storm is expected to move across the island into Monday and approach the central Bahamas on Tuesday. U.S. forecasters also added that Cuba suffered an island-wide power blackout on Friday. Some electrical services were restored on Saturday, but most residents remain without power. The country's energy minister expressed hope the grid could be restored on Monday or Tuesday. Mexican Catholic priest was killed on Sunday in the southern state of Chiapas after officiating a mass, his religious order and authorities said, marking the latest death in a recent wave of violence in the area. Marcelo Perez, who was Sozil, an indigenous Maya group native to the area, was leaving the neighborhood of Coxtitali in San Cristobal de las Casas, one of the state's largest cities, and returning to his home church nearby when he was killed, the Jesuits in Mexico said in a statement. 2 people on a motorcycle came up to his car, a white Ford, and shot him, according to state prosecutors. Mexico has seen a streak of murders in the past few weeks, including the beheading of the mayor of the state capital of Guerrero and an intra-cartel war in Sinaloa, which has left hundreds dead or missing, bringing calls for newly inaugurated President Claudia Sheinbaum to take swift action to stamp out crime. Sheinbaum earlier this month rolled out a 4-pronged approach that will also focus on treating the economic and social causes of crime and improving coordination between crime-fighting institutions. His death comes as violence has ratcheted up in Chiapas in recent years. From January to August, the state logged around 500 murders, up from 309 in the same period last year, according to official data. Earlier this month, soldiers fired on a convoy they said they mistook for members of a criminal group. The truck was carrying a group of migrants and 6 were killed. Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili addressed a crowd of thousands at rally in the capital on Sunday, delivering a strong pro-EU message just days before a fiercely contested parliamentary election. The October 26 election in Tbilisi is seen as a test of whether Georgia returns to Russia's orbit or maintains its pro-Western orientation. The EU granted candidate status to Georgia last year, a first stage towards eventual membership. However, relations have worsened sharply since Georgian Dream passed a foreign agent law in May, which critics say is evidence it is pivoting towards Russia. Georgians converged on Freedom Square to support the 4 main pro-Western opposition groups running next weekend. Zurabishvili, who has largely ceremonial powers, was elected in 2018 with Georgian Dream support, but has since become one of its strongest critics. Activists say the election was an opportunity to seize a European future for themselves and their children. Brussels has said Georgia's accession process is practically frozen amid concerns of democratic backsliding, while Washington, a major aid donor, pours tens of millions of dollars in assistance this year, citing similar concerns. Many demonstrators saw the election as existential for the country. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Still ahead, Mexican indigenous priest killed leaving Sunday Mass. We'll be back after this break. To stay with us.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to the government, humanitarian organizations, international actors, and citizens across the nation. Step in now, before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching the broadcast on the international news of Atlantic Television Network. We are open for advert placements, bookings, and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. South Korea on Monday demanded the immediate pullout of North Korean troops allegedly deployed in Russia as it summoned the Russian ambassador to protest deepening military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. South Korea's spy agency said on Friday that it had confirmed that North Korea sent 1,500 special operation forces to Russia earlier this month to support Moscow's war against Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier said his government had intelligence that 10,000 North Korean soldiers were being prepared to join invading Russian forces. During a meeting with Russian Ambassador George Zinoviev, Vice South Korean Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyung condemned in the strongest terms North Korea's troop dispatch that he said poses a grave security threat to South Korea and the international community. The South Korean Foreign Ministry said in a statement, Kim said that South Korea, in collaboration with the international community, will mobilize all available means to deal with an act that threatens its vital national security interests. Zinoviev replied he would relay South Korea's position to his home government, according to the South Korean statement. The Russian embassy quotes Zinoviev as saying that the Russian-North Korean cooperation is conducted in accordance with international laws and it's not aimed against the security interests of South Korea. North Korea's troop deployment to Russia has sparked concerns in South Korea that Russia might provide North Korea with advanced nuclear and missile technologies in return for the troops. North Korea's nuclear arsenal poses a significant security threat to South Korea, and South Korea has joined US-led sanctions against Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. However, it has not directly provided arms to Kyiv, citing a policy of not supplying weapons to countries actively engaged in conflicts. Russia has denied using North Korean troops in its war with Ukraine, and North Korea's state media has not commented on the matter. This would be North Korea's first participation in a major war since the end of the 1950-1953 Korean War. Cooperation between North Korea and Russia has flourished over the past 2 years, with accusations of North Korea supplying arms to Russia in return for economic and military assistance. In June, Kim and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a pact stipulating mutual military assistance if either country is attacked. Iran has written to the UN nuclear watchdog to complain about Israel's threat against its nuclear sites. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagay said on Monday at a weekly news conference. Israel has vowed to attack Iran in retaliation for a volley of Iranian missiles launched on October 4th, leading to widespread speculation that Iran's nuclear sites could be among Israel's targets. Threats to attack nuclear sites are against UN resolutions and are condemned. We have sent a letter about it to the UN nuclear watchdog, Bagay said in a televised news conference. Separately, Bagay said Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi would travel to Bahrain and Kuwait on Monday as part of Iran's efforts to curb regional tensions. Iran launched its October 1 missile attack to retaliate against Israeli strikes targeting its allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. It has the second Iranian attack on Israel this year. Israel responded to the first missile volley in April with an airstrike on an air defense site in central Iran. China condemned on Monday an attack on its consulate in Mandalay and urged Myanmar authorities to make every effort to arrest the perpetrators, a spokesperson of its foreign ministry said. Myanmar has been in turmoil since February 2021 when the military ousted an elected civilian government in a coup, abruptly ending the impoverished country's tentative steps towards becoming a full-fledged democracy. Last week's incident follows a surge in anti-China sentiment on social media in Myanmar after its recent pressure on rebel groups to halt their fighting against the military regime. A blast at 5 p.m. on Friday caused no casualties, but partially damaged the consulate premises, the ministry spokesperson Lin Jiang told a regular news conference. China has lodged serious representations with authorities in Myanmar, calling for a thorough investigation and every effort to severely punish the perpetrators according to law, Lin said. The Chinese consulate recently issued a reminder to all its citizens, businesses and groups in Myanmar to take heed of the security situation and adopt necessary precautions, he added. A spokesman for Myanmar's military government was not immediately available for comment. China's pressure for rebel groups to halt their fighting has fueled suspicion among people in Myanmar that China is supporting the junta, further alienating many of those who oppose military rule. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's August visit to meet junta chief Min Aung Hlaing was also seen by some critics as an endorsement of the embattled military government. Some activists in the Southeast Asian nation have voiced frustration at China's stance, calling it a significant barrier to the struggle for democracy. Taiwan's presidential office said on Monday it had appointed a senior advisor to President Lai Ching-te as its envoy to this year's APEC summit in Peru, one of the few international forums both Taiwan and China take part in. Lin Xing-yi, chairman of government-backed investment fund Taiwanian Capital and also a former economic minister, would represent Taiwan at the summit, the presidential office said in a statement. Lin, 77 years old, has led the delegation once before in 2005 in South Korea and attended APEC twice before that. The presidency said he is familiar with APEC operations and issues, it added. Lin briefly exchanged greetings with then Chinese President Hu Jintao at the 2005 summit. Neither government officially recognized the other. Chinese claimed Taiwan participates as Chinese Taipei at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum and does not send its president to summits, given the political sensitivities and China's objections. This year's Leaders Summit, which starts on November 15th in Lima, will take place around a month after China staged its latest round of war games around Taiwan, it said, were a warning to separatist acts. The democratically elected government in Taipei rejects Beijing sovereignty claims, saying only the island's people can decide their future. At last year's summit in San Francisco, Taiwan's APEC envoy, the TSMC founder Maurice Chang, had informal interactions with U.S. President Joe Biden and discussions with Secretary of State Antony Blinken, but none with Chinese President Xi Jinping. India and China have arrived on a patrolling arrangement along the disputed frontier in the Himalayas, and it can lead to disengagement and resolution of a conflict that began in 2020, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said on Monday. Former Vice President of China Development Bank CDB Wang Yongsheng has been sentenced to 12 years imprisonment and fined 2 million yuan for accepting bribes, state broadcaster said on Monday. Wang has found to have abused his position at CDB, China's largest policy bank, to provide assistance to entities and individuals for loan financing, bond subscription and personal arrangements, and illegally accepted property from others totaling more than 23.51 million yuan from 2010 to 2019, state broadcast said. Gunmen fatally shot at least 7 people working on a strategic tunnel project in Indian-controlled Kashmir and injured at least 5 others, officials said on Monday. Police blamed militants who have been fighting against Indian rule for decades for the terror attack at a camp for construction workers near the disputed region's resort town of Sonamarg. No rebel group immediately claimed responsibility. At least 2 gunmen fired discriminately at officials and workers associated with the construction of a tunnel project in Kashmir, leaving 2 dead on the spot, police said. At least 10 others were taken to hospital, where 5 more died. The attack came shortly after workers returned to their lodgings on Sunday night. The region's top elected official, Omar Abdullah, condemned the attack, calling it dastardly and cowardly. A key Kashmiri resistance leader expressed his deep sadness at the killings. The tunnel project aims to connect the Kashmir Valley with Ladakh, a cold desert region isolated for half a year due to massive snowfalls. Experts believe the tunnel project is important to the military, which will gain significantly improved capabilities to operate in Ladakh. The region shares de facto borders with Pakistan and China, and India and Chinese soldiers have been engaged in a military standoff there since 2020. Sunday's attack was the second attack on a non-local worker in the region since a largely powerless local government was sworn into office following the forced local elections since India stripped the region of semi-autonomy 5 years ago. Police say the killings, which has also included local Muslim village councillors, police officials and civilians, have been carried out by anti-India rebels. India insists that Kashmir militancy is Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, while Pakistan denies the charge, and many Kashmiris consider it a freedom struggle. Tens of thousands of civilians, rebels and government forces have been killed in the conflict. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in Kyiv on an unannounced visit on Monday, hours after a Russian drone attack on the Ukrainian capital, and as Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky pushes Western partners to keep providing military support for the war. Austin said on the X platform that his 4th visit shows that the United States, alongside the international community, continues to stand by Ukraine. Ukraine is having difficulty holding back a ferocious Russian campaign along the eastern front that is gradually compelling Kyiv's forces to give up a series of towns, villages and hamlets. Zelensky is urging Western allies to support his so-called victory plan to end the almost 3-year war, which is Europe's biggest conflict since World War II and has caused tens of thousands of lives on both sides, including many civilians. His strategy includes a formal invitation for Ukraine to join NATO and permission to use Western long-range missiles to strike military targets in Russia, steps Kyiv's allies have previously balked at supporting. The Western response has been lukewarm, and Austin was expected to discuss the plan with the Ukrainian officials in Kyiv. Zelensky said in a Sunday evening video address that his plan had won the backing of France, Lithuania, Nordic countries and many other allies in the European Union, which he didn't name. The key country, however, is the United States, which is Ukraine's biggest military supplier. Zelensky said he had received very positive signals from the United States, but he stopped short of saying he had secured Washington's endorsement for the plan. Russia fired 3 missiles and Russia fired 3 missiles and 160 shy drones at Ukraine overnight from Sunday to Monday. Ukraine's Air Force said machine gun fire and the noise of drones' engines was heard in Kyiv's center throughout the night. Authorities reported minor damages to civilian infrastructure caused by falling drone debris in the 3 districts of the city. U.S. military has rushed its advanced anti-missile system to Israel, and it is now in place, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said. The Terminal High Altitude Area Defense THAAD system, a crucial component of the U.S. military's air defense system, is currently in place in Ukraine. President Joe Biden has urged Israel to calibrate its response to avoid triggering a broader Middle East war. The THAAD system, along with around 100 U.S. soldiers, is meant to help defend Israel, which is weighing unexpected retaliations against Iran after Tehran fired over 180 missiles at Israel on October 1st. Biden has expressed his opposition to an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear sites and concerns about a strike on its energy infrastructure. Biden has a good understanding of when and how Israel will attack Iran, but also sees an opportunity to end the 2 enemies' back-and-forth strikes. Austin, however, is cautious about the exact nature of Israel's strike and the perception of proportionality between the Israelis and Iranians. He plans to continue working to de-escalate tensions and ensure de-escalation. Greece has recovered the bodies of 2 migrants, a man and a woman, who had been missing after a boat sank off the island of Samos in the Aegean Sea, the country's Coast Guard said on Monday. Another 22 people who boarded the same boat have been rescued amid fair weather, and the rescue operations has ended, a Coast Guard official said. Greece was a main gateway for migrants in 2015 to 2016, when more than 1 million people, mostly Syrian refugees, crossed from neighboring Turkey to the country's outlying eastern islands, mostly on flimsy dinghies. The number of arrivals dropped before surging again last year, with many migrants attempting a new southern route via the island of Gavdos. Russia attacked the Ukrainian capital Kyiv with several waves of drones for the 2nd night in a row, damaging residential buildings and injuring at least 1 civilian, Ukrainian officials said on Monday. The Ukrainian military said air defenses downed 59 out of 116 Russian drones launched overnight. The military lost track of 45 drones that likely fell into Ukrainian territory, it said. Another night, another worry, Sei Popko, head of Kyiv's military administration, said on Telegram, the enemy does not reduce the intensity of airstrikes on Ukraine and Kyiv. Up to 10 drones were still in Ukrainian airspace. The military said several attacks hit civilian infrastructure. About 10 drones targeting the capital in several waves and from different directions were destroyed. Popko said, while none of the weapons hit the target, falling debris injured at least 1 man, he added. Debris fell onto 3 of Kyiv's main districts, damaging some to roofs and the facades of several residential buildings and power cables, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said on Telegram. As a result of the falling debris, the roof of a multi-story residential building was damaged, windows were smashed, and 1 apartment was partially destroyed, Kyiv Regional Administration added. The air raid alerts in Kyiv lasted more than 5 hours before the Air Force declared skies clear at around 2:15 p.m. The attack followed Russian strikes in Kyiv and other cities on Sunday, which injured 17 people in a central Ukrainian city. In Kharkiv, an eastern Ukrainian region bordering Russia, at least 12 people were injured overnight after Russian launched guided air bombs, National Police said on Telegram. Several residential buildings were damaged, it said. Newsmen could not independently verify the reports. There was no immediate comment from Moscow. Both countries denied targeting civilians in the 2.5-year war that started when Russia invaded its neighbor in February 2022. Israeli military apologized on Monday for a strike that killed 3 Lebanese soldiers in southern Lebanon the previous day, saying it is not battling the country's military and its soldiers believe they were targeting a vehicle belonging to the Hezbollah militant group. Last week, Hezbollah said it is entering a no phase in its fight against invading Israeli troops, as the region reckoned with the killing of top Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in a battle with Israeli forces in Gaza. Sinwar was the chief architect of the attack in southwestern Israel that precipitated the latest escalating conflicts in the Middle East. Israel's allies, war-weary residents of Gaza and others have expressed hope that Sinwar's death would pave the way for an end to the war. But both Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas have vowed to keep fighting until they achieve their goals. Netanyahu has pledged to annihilate Hamas and recover dozens of hostages held by the group. Hamas says it will only release the captives in return for a lasting ceasefire, a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. On October 7, 2023, Hamas-led militants blew holes in Israel's security fence and stormed in, killing some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducted another 250 Israel's offensive in Gaza, and also killed over 42,000 Palestinians, according to local health authorities, who do not distinguish between combats from civilians. The war has destroyed large areas of Gaza and displaced about 90% of its population of 2.3 million people. And that's it on the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. We told you that Tanzanian senior opposition party official abducted. Egypt certified as malaria-free by World Health Organization. Elon Musk's election promise sparks probe. Mexican indigenous priest killed leaving Sunday mass. We also told you that China condemns attack on Myanmar consulate. We also told you that gunmen killed 7 people in Kashmir. Well, you heard that Israel apologizes for strike that killed Lebanese soldiers. That's it on the international news for today. I am Victor Peter. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can follow us on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are always the pathways to progress. Business news comes up next. To stay with us.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara